My guest today is director of Fondation Henri Cartier-Bresson in Paris. He's a French photography historian and curator. And before he joined the foundation, he has held senior curatorial positions at the Centre Pompidou in Paris, the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, and the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. My guest has overseen many exhibitions and books on photography and with photographers. He earned a degree from the École nationale supérieure de la photographie in Arles and a PhD in art history from the University of the Sorbonne in Paris. He has been awarded the Prix Nadar and the Royal Norwegian Order of Merit. My guest was born in Paris in 1970. Find out with me why he is in photography, what he dreams of, what he looks up to, and what his plans are. Welcome in the Donkere Kamer Podcast with Clément Cheroux. Hi, Clément. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome in my podcast, and nice to meet you here in Arles. We are at the photo festival Les Rencontres d'Arles in the south of France. I guess this is your yearly meetup with a lot of experts, colleagues, and photographers. What makes this festival so special to you?
What makes the festival so special? I think it has been a kind of habit for me to get back to Halle almost every year. I'm coming to Halle since 1999. So almost 40 years that I'm coming back every summer, and I perfectly remember the first time I came here, watching the evening in the antique theater, discovering new bodies of work in this amazing environment. I think I was mesmerized the first time I was here by the quality of what was proposed, but also the quality of the environment in which we were discovering photography, and especially at the Antique Theatre. It was such a mesmerizing experience to discover photographs on this giant screen. That was really amazing.
Yeah, and that was long ago. Do you think the quality stayed that high or even grew?
Yeah, for sure. The big difference today compared to what was going on at the end of the 80s or even in the 90s was that now exhibitions in Arles are curated. It means that there is a curator who is working with the photographer to help displaying the work, and I think it makes a huge difference. And yeah, I mean, in the 80s and 90s, that was just that was not the point to have a curator involved in the show, and now there is a curator, so that makes a big difference.
Yeah, there's a lot of noise because we are here in the reception hall of the hotel.
That's part of the rencontre.
Yeah, it is. And we will see how we can level the noise down with AI. So
Wonderful.
that will be okay. But you're talking about curating exhibitions also here. You are a curator besides many different roles. They're also cleaning the windows behind us. You are a curator besides many other roles you have. What is actually the importance of a curator next to the language or the vision of the photographer himself?
So the curator is a medium. He's in between the artist and the spectators, in the middle of someone who has a creative, who is a creative force, and someone who is here to learn, to watch, to look at, to be enchanted by what is or what she is looking at. And the curator is just in the middle. So his role is to help the artist to say something. I think it's a very important role. I truly believe that the curator should not be an artist himself. I know that today we are talking a lot about the curator as an artist.
But you are a photographer yourself, right?
Yes, I'm a photographer myself, but I'm not considering myself as a photographer or as an artist. It was very important in my process of understanding photography and understanding how other photographers are working to be trained as a photographer. But to come back to what I was saying before, I don't think that the curator should be considering himself as an artist or as a. I think the important thing is to keep a level of creativity in what we are doing, but it's not about me when I'm curating a show. It's not about me as a curator. It's about an artist or a theme, and the role of the curator is to help the people to understand the message, or understand an idea or a temperament, or and when I'm saying that the curator is not an artist, it doesn't mean that the curator should not have any creativity. I think the creativity is super important in curating. To help people understand required a lot of creativity, but it's not being an artist. So that's where I made the difference between being an artist and being a creative curator.
And when do you push as a curator, push an idea, or push the photographer in kind of a direction, and when do you step back?
It's a great question. I would say that I'm pushing when I think it reveals something, and I'm stopping. I stop pushing when I think it goes too in depth into the intimacy of the artist. And there is a kind of frontier or border where sometimes I don't want to push too much.
Yeah, and you also have to build a kind of trust.
Yeah,
and that takes time.
Yeah, it takes time. It's about trust. It's also about encounter, about meeting, about. I think as a curator, you are never as good as when your interest is meeting the interest of the artists that you are working with. Meaning that there is a certain moment when you understand that you are interested in the same thing, and I believe that this is where you are good at as a curator, because if you are not interested in what you're working on, you just don't see it. I experienced many times working with artists that I was discovering things, works in their archives that has never been shown before, because I was able to understand how important it was, because I was myself interested in the topic.
Yeah.
And so that's a question of meeting with someone and sharing the same passion for something, for a topic, for a place, or something like that.
Yeah. And you have to meet them in person, right?
Yes.
That's really important, I think.
That's I mean, I cannot imagine doing a show without being in touch with the artist when, of course, he's still living.
But that's something else. Yeah.
When he's not, and I've made many shows artists who were not living anymore. But in that case, the question of the archives is super important.
Yeah.
You have to go into the archives. You have to dive into the archives and to make research, to meet with the artist through what he has left on the in his or her archive.
It's a bit the same when, like, an actor needs to prepare for a certain role. He also needs to do research or dive into the life of that person. As a curator, working with the work of a death photographer, you need to do the same, right?
Yeah, clearly. I would not say that it's about how do you say that? It's not about impersonating the artist, but it's about better understanding what he was interested in. And sometimes you understand that through a little piece of paper. Organizing a few years ago an exhibition about Louis Stettner. There is a wonderful Louis Stettner exhibition right now at the Rencontre d'Arles. And at one point I discovered that a small family photograph where Louis Stettner was at the age of something like 5 or 6 next to his mother. And on the other side of the mother there was a second Louis Stettner who was his twin brother. And I've never known that Louis had a twin brother. That was something that I discovered right at that moment. Yeah. And then suddenly it opened a complete new understanding of his work.
Of course.
Because I realized that the question of the question of doubling or twinning things was super important in his photograph. And in fact, if you look at his work, there are a lot of photographs where there is reflection in the window shop, 2 times the same person or the same kind of person back to back. And so suddenly I understood that why this question of doubling was so important.
Yeah, the twins' energy, like we single persons do not know. Wow. So all these details are very, very important. Yeah.
And so that's the archives is an amazing way of discovering or understanding the artist. For sure.
Yeah. So you have one exhibition here running that you curated today, or in
Arles? No, not this year.
Not this year. No. Okay, a few years ago.
A few years ago, that was not here in Arles. This Stettner exhibition I'm talking about was in San Francisco at the Museum of Modern Art in San Francisco.
And it's still on show somewhere? No. Okay.
The book still exists, but not the show.
Yeah, you're talking about this exhibition, but you curated a lot of shows, were involved with a lot of books, PhD in photography, you're an art historian, but how did you get into photography? Was it something that was important in your family?
No, in fact, that was a kind of encounter. When I was 16, I was in a train going to the south of France, and I heard a voice on the speaker saying, "Come to car number 14, there is a photo exhibition." And that was something quite
mysterious.
Because usually you don't find a photo exhibition in a train, but they had completely emptied the train, the car, put some walls on the window, and so photographs were replacing the window of the train. Mm-hmm. And there was 3 artists that were shown in that train. One was Pierre Molinier. The other one was a couple of photographers, Mino and Gormezzino.
You still know the names.
And the third one was a French performer. I'm blanking on the name right now. Very important French performer. And so that was exactly not what you're supposed to see on a train going to the Riviera, to the south of France in the summer with a lot of family on board, because it was quite, you know, I'm sure the work of Pierre Molinier. It's not exactly what you are showing to a teenager, especially today. And I was completely fascinated by this exhibition in a train. For me at that time, when I was 16, photography was family photographs and
analog,
and what you can see in a family album. And I was probably not expecting at the time that photography could be an art, or could be something that you use to express yourself. And so that was the beginning of my interest into photography. And so I think that a few months after, I started going to the lab in my school, and starting being interested, starting buying photo books, and so that was the beginning of an important part of my life.
Still is. And your parents encouraged you?
Yes. They didn't say no. So
No.
that was that was completely fine.
Yeah. So you studied photography, but when did you feel like, okay, but the medium or the creative part of photography is not my direction. I want to work more in an academic way with the medium.
I think that was very clear. I would not say since the beginning, but very quickly I understood that I was not interested in photographing. I was much more interested in looking at, researching on photographs, and sharing them and showing them. I think it's also maybe a question of quantity. I was probably at that time thinking that okay, if I become a photographer, I'm going to be able to do one interesting series every 6 months, or every year, or every 10 years. I don't know. But if I'm a photo historian and a researcher, I'm going to be able to see great things every day or something
Smart.
like that. So that was the question of quantity.
Okay.
We are always talking about quality, but the question of quantity is something very important in photography. My relationship to photography is also related to quantity. I'm not entirely into just a single image.
Okay.
So this question of quantity. So I think it became very, very quickly clear for me that I was interested in collecting, researching, meeting with photographers, looking at photo books, going into the archives, and I was much, much more excited by that than by just pushing the button, putting a camera in front of someone or something, developing and all these things. So that was, that was very quickly clear when I was 20 something, that I didn't want to become a photographer.
Yeah. And you speak about series and the quantity of the medium. I guess the role of photography was different in the 90s when you grew up, or when you made that decision, than it is today. How how important is photography still today, or how can it be still like a dominant medium in the visual world?
I think it is in a different way. I mean, it's still an important part of our visual culture. I mean, just think about social media, and which is, I mean, today super important in our life, not only through reels but also through photographs. I mean, that's clear that what photography is today is completely different as what it was in the 90s. I see it as the evolution for me is a kind of continuation of how can I say that, this maybe let's come back to this idea of quantity, which is something that has always been part of the photographic culture. I remember in the 90s making research on the photography in the 19th century, and being fascinating to find article in the press in 80-60 or 80-70, 80-80, all these years where the paper were about the fact that there were too many photographers, and that they were completely overwhelmed with so many photographs, and that was only in the 19th century. And it was already...
History repeats.
Yeah, already about this idea that photography is always overwhelming us.
Mm-hmm.
And you can find in the press exactly the same type of article in the 19th century, in the 20th century, stereotypes about photography. It's always about the quantity, and I think it's still the same today. It's just a question of, the quantity is still there. It's much more quantity than it was before, but the quantity is just growing. But it's still about the quantity. So I'm not afraid about this quantity.
It has always been a medium in crisis.
Yeah.
Always.
In crisis, because it's a medium which is always evolving, always changing. But I think this is part of the history, and this is part of probably the nature of the medium. I'm super interested in what I call I don't know what's the English word for that, malléabilité in French, the fact that it's always changing, always evolving, the fact that a photo exists in a newspaper, in a book, on the wall as a fine print, as a poster on our screen, and there are many photographs that do not really have a kind of unique materiality as a painting, and so that's also part of photography, and of course that helps the question of the quantity.
Yeah,
it's super important.
And you say, to me it is still very fascinating, because working in the field of photography, you have to be very flexible. You have to adapt all the time, because the photography you knew in the 90s is, it's something completely different today, and still you like it and you're fascinated about it.
Yeah, I remember, to come back to your previous question, I remember that in the 90s I was frustrated about not being able to look at everybody's family album. I was meeting with someone and I was watching at someone in the street, and I was remembering I would love to see his or her family album. And now today it's with Instagram and other platforms, it's possible to look at people's family albums. at that time, and now we have access to the most. I mean, that's not exactly the same family album as what we find today on Instagram is not exactly the family album of the 90s, but it's a bit as if it was the family album, and so. I'm not afraid of the quantity that we can find today in photography because I mean it's in a way it calmed down my frustration of the 90s.
Does that mean that you look at a lot of images daily?
Yes.
Yeah. And how or where or?
Everywhere. I'm a compulsive looker. I really love to look at a lot of images, and so quite regularly I'm looking at websites where I know that I will find magazines, a complete digitalization of a magazine from the 30s, and I'm going through the whole magazine in 3-4 evening or things like that. So yes, I'm looking at a lot of images. I mean, here again, the quantity is part of my interest and finding things.
How do you scan or select intuitively to these images you like or can learn from?
Since the beginning of my interests in photography at the end of the 80s, I'm having folders where I'm keeping things, and I've
old school way.
Yeah, and I've probably, I don't know, 100 of different folders about things that I'm interested in. It's like a kind of scrapbook where, artists of the 20th century were starting scrapbooks. Walker Evans had one, Anna Höhr, the German Dada artist, had one, and so many artists had their own imaginary museum or collection of images, and so I have these kind of folders where I'm putting articles, images that I'm interested in, and so these folders in the 90s were in physical papers, and now they are digital. So I have many of these folders on my computer, and regularly I'm adding things there.
Yeah. You still consult it.
It's here again. It's probably part of the photographic process. There is a kind of latency. Mm-hmm. Is that the correct word? Latence in French.
It is there.
It's there.
It's there, and you can work with it whenever you want. That's
you can
what you
develop it.
Yeah.
You can process it at one point, and it becomes an article, an essay, a book, an exhibition. Most of my exhibition were ideas that were coming from these folders.
So you have multiple, like.
Yes, something like 100 of these folders. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And do you also have like photography hanging on your walls at home, or you really need to detox from photography when you are at home?
No, I have photographs at home.
Okay.
And in my office and everywhere.
Yeah, right. I also announced you as the director of the Fondation Henri Cartier-Bresson. Mm-hmm. What is your exact role there?
So I'm the director of the Fondation Henri Cartier-Bresson. Being the director of this institution, who was founded by Henri Cartier-Bresson and Martine Franck in 2003, so a bit more than 20 years ago. is a great, it's a great role, a great job, and also a kind of responsibility, because it's about making sure that their voice,
their legacy,
their legacy of Henri Cartier-Bresson and Martin Franck
which is his wife, right?
His wife, and also a great photographer of the 20th century.
Yes.
And usually when I'm talking about my role, I'm using a kind of metaphor, explaining that there are languages that are still used today and some that are dead. For example, if you think about Latin, nobody is speaking Latin anymore, and so there are languages. And my role is to make sure that we are still speaking the Cartier-Bresson and the Martin Franck today.
Okay.
Meaning that the work is still circulating. We are still looking at their photographs.
But even more than just showing the work.
Yeah, you're completely right. It's about showing the works in exhibition, making books. We have reissued recently The Decisive Moment, a famous book from 52.
Yes.
We are working right now on reissuing the Europeans, the book from 55,
which is more alive than ever.
Exactly. And so it's about making sure that the work is still visible. It's also about making sure that the new generation of curators and researchers and historians are coming to the archives to propose a new approach, new reading of these important works of the 20th century.
Yes.
Making sure that artists are coming and looking at the work. So it's really about from the 20th century are still relevant today. So that's my role as the director of the Fondation Henri Cartier-Bresson. I'm also acting as a curator in this institution because we have two missions. One of them is preserving the work of Henri Cartier-Bresson and Martin Franck, and the other one is to act as a photographic institution in Paris. So we have an exhibition space where we are showing exhibition of young artists or well-known artists from the 20th century. Right now we have an exhibition of Richard Avedon showing for the first time in Europe the complete set of In the American West, the work by Avedon made in the beginning of the 80s.
But then combined with the work of Cartier-Bresson?
No, the space and that. The space is not only dedicated to the work of Henri Cartier-Bresson or Martin Franck, and that was their will. They wanted to. They have created the Fondation Henri Cartier-Bresson to preserve their work, but they also were completely aware, and they didn't want that the Fondation. They didn't want it to. They didn't want to create a space that would only be a temple to their work. They also were very interested in having a space that would be a platform for other photographers, their peers, but also young artists. And we are also super interested in showing young artists from other geographies, not necessarily working in the same manner as Henri Cartier-Bresson or Martin Franck. They were very open, and so we try to stay the same. So the next show is going to be who is presenting a work that he made in Ivory Coast last year. It's part of a program that we are developing with the Fondation d'Entreprise Hermès and the ICP in New York. And so we are trying to find a good balance between historical artists, young photographers and artists.
But why exactly did you say yes to this challenge when they asked you? Was it because you really liked the work of Henri Cartier-Bresson, or was it something else?
The simple answer would be that I have been curating an Henri Cartier-Bresson exhibition when I was the head of the photography department at the Pompidou.
Mm-hmm.
So that was in 2014.
And then he died in 12?
2004.
Martin Franck died in 12,
yeah,
yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that was the first retrospective after he died.
Ah, okay.
And
10 years after his death?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
And that was, I would say, the first time that someone was really allowed to go into the archives without Henri Cartier-Bresson, and so we showed.
That was you.
And I was very fortunate to do that.
Okay.
And of course, in discussion with Martin Franck, who was still there during the whole process.
Yeah.
I was able to show her my selection before she disappeared.
Yeah.
And that was a fantastic journey into the archives. And when the president of the Fondation Henri Cartier-Bresson come to me and asked me if I was interested in becoming the new director, I thought that it was not an easy decision. Of course, I was the chief curator at MoMA at that time, but
yes.
I think I was super interested in continuing the work that I started almost 20 years ago with researching on Cartier-Bresson. I was very aware that there was still some great things that has to be done on Henri Cartier-Bresson, some places or pockets where I knew that there was things to discover and to study to help the understanding and the recognition. So many things to discover and to research on Martin Franck, who is also really an amazing photographer of the 20th century. There was a lot of things that have never been shown before. And so, I mean, the combination, I was living in the States at that time, the combination of getting back to Europe and also having this position where I knew that it would be part of curating, part of researching. I think I was interested in
ideal
this
combination.
proposal.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I also think, like, with the decisive moment or le moment décisif, maybe it will be, or even get more and more important for the next generation of photographers with the rise of AI, with everybody holding a camera or a smartphone that you can photograph whenever and whatever you want, that the framing, like le moment, will be so much more important.
I truly believe that the decisive moment is something important in photography, but it's part of the history of photography. So, I mean, it's like documentary photography or experimental photography. These are things that are coming back and then disappearing again and then coming back, and then there is a new generation who is completely not interested in it, and then a new generation who suddenly fall in love with these important. I'm sure that the decisive moment will still have some great moments in the future, and this is something which is so connected to photography. It's not the only way to photograph.
True.
Of course, you can't fabricate photograph, or which is not relevant. The decisive moment is not relevant anymore. But there is different way of photographing. The decisive moment is only a small part of it, but it's so important that I'm sure that it's still going to be interesting in 1 or 2 centuries. So I'm not afraid of this important part of photography disappearing.
Henri Cartier-Bresson was also the founder of Magnum Photos agency. Is that an institution you collaborate with, or is it really like very separated?
I mean, we are still collaborating today with Magnum. All the books and exhibitions that are related to Henri Cartier-Bresson are the Fondation is in charge of all the books and exhibition, but everything that has to do with distribution in the press is going through the Magnum agency. We are working regularly with Magnum.
Yeah. You talked about Paris and New York. You've lived in New York, you worked in New York. Could you say that Paris is a more photo-centered city, or is it more New York? Or
today, a lot of places that are important in the photo world. I really don't want to reduce the photo world to Paris of New York, which has been so important at the end in the second half of the 20th century. Today, with the internet and with the globalization, we know that many cities are super important, and sometimes things are happening not necessarily in a place but on the internet. So I think it's something which is quite important. What I found fascinating in the differences between the US and France is that the culture of photography is a bit different. New York and the US has been so interested in the fine art approach of photography. It was part of the recognition of photography as an art since the beginning of the 20th century with Stieglitz. And Stieglitz was coming from a culture of the print, of the engraving, and so the way that the US are still considering photography as an art form today is really related to this culture of the fine art prints. In France, it's a bit different. If you look at the places where the recognition of photography as an art has been built in Paris and New York, these are not the same institution. For example, in New York, that was the Museum of Modern Art. First Stieglitz with his gallery, and then the Museum of Modern Art. If you look at France, the places where photography was recognized as an art, it was much more the Bibliothèque Nationale, and then some photo agencies like Magnum, Gamma, Sigma, SIPA. And so it's a different approach of photography. In France, it was not so much about the fine art prints in pristine condition. It was much more about the question of photography being a document, photography being a multiple. In a library like the Bibliothèque Nationale, you are not only collecting fine art prints, you are also collecting values. And so this, if you look at the places where photography was recognized or legitimate as an art, you can see that the culture is a bit different. And even if today there is a lot of mix between these two countries, and also there is the influence of other countries, but still today there is a bit of this difference that is still present.
Because you would say with the globalization that these two movements would, kind of
merge.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. I would say the difference is not as visible as it was in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, but there is still a bit of that. It's for me not a surprise to see that Paris is so strong in the photo book today.
True.
I mean, Paris and France, there is a lot of, the number of photo book stores in Paris is just crazy. There is probably 15 places that are selling photo books.
Which is crazy.
Which is completely, it's great. There is not as much in Berlin, London, and even New York. The number of photo book publishers in France is quite amazing. Not only in Paris, there is a lot in this around here in Marseille, for example.
Yeah.
And I mean, here again, the fact that there is so many activities around the photo book is related to the fact that there is this culture in France of the multiple, of the reproducibility of the photographic image, which comes from this idea of photography not being only a fine art, but also being, through the Bibliothèque Nationale, this photo agency. I mean, this is part of this culture of reproducibility, which is still present today. You can explain a lot of things that happen still today in France through this kind of importance of the way that photography was recognized as an art in the second half of the 20th century.
Yeah, this is really interesting. And I guess the next coming of years, you will stay in Paris and you will support this approach or this movement. Finally, the quality, but also the quantity of the medium that is important to you. But if you could just pick one element out of the medium or the field or photography, what would that be for you personally that really attracts you?
Oh, very interesting. It's a big question. I just saw yesterday a small show by Johan Foncouberta, who is the Actes Sud bookshop here in Arles, and the show is called The Eye and the Index, the finger pointing at something. And I truly that this is something which is very, very important. I learned that from Roland Barthes, of course, which famous book is about the index, about the idea of designating or showing something. But I also learned that from John Charkowski, the head of the MoMA photography department, from 62 to 91.
You know that by heart. Okay.
And John Charkowski published a very important text about Eugène Atget, where he said that the work of look at this, look at that, this is important. Most of us are walking in the street and not necessarily seeing that thing. But me as a photographer, I tell you, you should look at that.
Yeah, you put a spotlight on.
Exactly.
It's actually the framing you do as a photographer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is the idea of pointing, the act of pointing.
Yeah.
Which is very important for the photographer, which is also very important for the viewers. This is what Barthes described as the index, as the punctum. There is something in the photograph which is something you react on. And I also think that this is something super important for a curator, because it's also, here again, it's also about pointing. Look at this work, look at this photographer, look at this theme, look at this little detail in this photograph. This is something important. So
it's also kind of manipulation, right? Well, that's maybe a negative word, but
pointing
to manipulate the direction of the viewer. Yeah,
I would not describe it. I mean, the word manipulate
is a bit negative. I know, but you
so I would
like
not put it that way.
You are at the steering wheel, and you point it.
No, because there is no obligation behind that.
Yeah.
When I'm doing an exhibition, I'm not saying to the people, I mean, I'm not...
That's a good remark. And there's no obligation.
Yeah, I'm not saying if you are not coming to see that show, you are going to be... I mean, something wrong is going to happen with you. I mean, even when I'm curating a show, I don't want... Of course, I'm doing my best to share what's taking pleasure just at looking at the image, and if they are doing their own thing with the image, that's perfectly fine with me. So it's not a kind of obligation. It's much more a way of, okay, I think it's important. I just want to share it with you. But if you are not interested, that doesn't matter. That's fine.
Yeah. So the index.
So it's not, for me, it's not manipulating. It's much more sharing, and if you are sharing the same thing, that's great. But if not, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. What a nice medium it is, photography. And to wrap up, could you repeat what the next exhibition is planned in the Fondation? So
in October, we'll open 2 shows at the Fondation Henri Cartier-Bresson. One is from French Ivoirian photographer François-Xavier Bray, and it's called Radio Ballast, and it's about a train that was traveling through Ivory Coast in the 20th century, and it's a wonderful project. What kind of train is it? It's a train that was built during the period of the colonial period in Ivory Coast, which was constructed by the French to extract materials from Ivory Coast during the minerals, woods, fruits, and all the good stuff. All the good stuff. And so François-Xavier Bray has been following this train line and photographing there, and it's a wonderful project, super interesting project that is documenting the different layers of the history of Ivory Coast, the colonial period, but also after the colonization. And with this exhibition, we are going to show the work of Sibylle Bergemann, a German photographer. So we have 2 different rooms in the exhibition at the Fondation, and we're going to show the work of Sibylle Bergemann, a work that she has been working on in the 80s. Sibylle Bergemann was a German photographer born in East Germany, and she has been documenting a monument to Marx and Engels, which was installed in East Berlin. And here again, it's a super interesting stories about history and memory. So we are going to have these 2 shows in opening in October at the Fondation Henri Cartier-Bresson. Okay, great to hear. Thank you, Clément, for this interesting conversation. Thank you also to you, listener, for listening up until here, so you can grow too. And I think growth is essential, and I will support your growth, because in August I will take my listeners through a daily mini podcast series, which is called The Daily Frame.
These are sort of 10-minute episodes in which I share insights on 4 things that are so important to photographers, which is creativity, entrepreneurship, your mindset, and also what is going on in the industry. You get 20 episodes for only €8.88. So what are we talking about? And yes, I deliberately charge something for it because I believe that this means you really listen and work with it. Like if you pay attention. It is low thresholds, but it is very, very transformative. We start on August 1 and you can register until 9 a.m. that morning. If you feel, yes, I really want to use this summer more consciously to adjust, then this is really for you. You'll find the link in the show notes together with the link to the Fondation Henri Cartier-Bresson. So this was it. Until next time.